Season 2 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. More battles, new characters being introduced, and more innocent battle droids being murdered in cold mechanical oil.
Uh-oh. You would allow us to close down for a few moments?
It's a season where we get introduced to a lot of different ideas, perspectives, and more battles to engage the audience. Ideas such as determining whether it's the right time to let your Padawan go and learn to grow on their own, whether your main purpose in life is just to be a soldier that was created to fight in a war, or to become your own person and gain your own ideas and perspective, or learning to fight for what you believe is right despite getting some backlash with those around you. This is what leads to not only one of my favorite arcs throughout this season, but one of my favorite storylines from the Clone Wars as a whole, and that expands on other areas of the Star Wars universe. It's an arc that focuses on exploring old relationships, understanding perspective from another point of view, and staying true to your own beliefs. Today I'm going to be talking about the Mandalore arc from Season 2 of Clone Wars, and I'm going to go over some parts that I think work really well with the story arc, the characters, the story, and the overall impact with both the Clone Wars and the Star Wars universe as a whole. I'm the Night Owl, and let's get into talking about my favorite arc of Season 2 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. We get introduced to Mandalore and learn about their neutrality within the Clone Wars. They've isolated themselves from the conflict and have no interest in joining either the Republic or the Separatists. However, there is some rumors that spark up where Mandalore is planning to break from their neutrality and to align themselves with the Separatists. This is when Obi-Wan's tasked to go to Mandalore to speak with their ruler Duchess Satine to investigate these allegations about Mandalore joining the Separatists after a Mandalorian assassin was asked to take out a Republic base. You know, I wonder if Mandalore is going to have any sort of importance or impact to the rest of the Star Wars universe. Nah, probably not. It's probably going to be like one of those one-off planets that's only going to exist in one episode and we're not going to know about them after a while. So when we get introduced to Mandalore, we also learn about this terrorist group called Death Watch, where they're protesting against Mandalore's more peaceful, pacifistic routes. Death Watch has teamed up with Count Dooku and the Separatists to attempt to overthrow Satine. We see them cause a couple different disturbances to get the people of Mandalore riled up and nervous about the ever-impending threat of Death Watch looming over the city. It's at this point when Obi-Wan and Satine go over to one of Mandalore's moons to investigate some Death Watch activity. We tend to learn more of Death Watch's goals throughout a little bit more of this arc. Death Watch's main goal is to try and regain their warrior routes to not only become a more known presence throughout the universe, but also to break away from their neutrality methods that have been implemented by Satine. At this point, Obi-Wan and Anakin are tasked to protect Satine while they're en route to go to Coruscant for Satine to plead her case to stay neutral and to let them take care of Death Watch on their own and not allow any presence of Republic forces to be on the planet's surface. While they're en route, a couple of assassin droids have been planted onto the ship to take out Satine and to also frame it so that way it's shown that the Republic is needed to be present on Mandalore to stop all the conflict that's been going on the planet's surface. It's also here as well too where we get yet another scene of Anakin committing another war crime because, hey, just like the last video, Anakin's out here committing war crimes and still getting away with it scot-free.
Come on then. Who will strike first and brand themselves a cold-blooded killer?
Anakin.
What?
He was gonna blow up the ship.
Once they finally make it to Coruscant, this is where Satine is making her plea to the Senate that they do not need the presence of Republic troops on Mandalore to take on Death Watch. They don't want them because not only do they feel that they can handle their own conflicts on their own, but they feel that if the Republic is brought to Mandalore, this would also bring the presence of the Separatists, this would bring them into the war that's been going on, and it would break their neutrality and what their current beliefs are at this moment. We also learn of another assassination attempt that's being put on Satine, where if Satine is taken out, not only will this cause more uprise and more of an imposing threat that the Republic is needed to take on what's been going on with Death Watch, but this would also allow Death Watch to kind of show that pacifism and neutrality has not been in the best favor of the people of Mandalore, and that they need to rise up to their old warrior roots so that way they can be a known presence and a powerful group of people once again, so that way they can be able to take on any opposing threats that's outside of them. We learned that the main reason Satine is opposed to violence is due to a conflict that happened on Mandalore many years ago, as explained by Obi-Wan, where there was a civil war that killed many of her people, and she's been opposed to the proposition of violence. This is what caused her to have a more pacifistic mindset, so violence isn't necessarily the answer to everything. Negotiations and peace talking is what could be done to try and solve any sort of conflict, so that way we can come to both sides of agreement instead of trying to murderously take each other out. She doesn't want her people to suffer from the threat of a government having to take control of her planet and to be forced to be drawn into a war. She wants her people to live in a lifestyle that doesn't require conflicts, doesn't require any sort of violence. This is opposed to when we're introduced to the Death Watch leader, Pre Vizsla, where he's one in the galaxy to remember Mandalorians for what they truly are and what they truly stand for. They're warriors first and conquerors second. He wants their presence to be heard and seen, and he wants the galaxy to remember what it really does mean to be a Mandalorian. It does make it a little sad to rewatch this arc knowing what's going to happen to both Satine and Vizsla later on in the series, but I'll save that topic for another day. We mainly focus on Obi-Wan and Satine throughout this story arc, where we learn about their political differences for the Clone Wars, and we also get a little bit of their history before the war actually started. It's also interesting to see them working together. It's almost like an equivalent of being forced to work with Urax on a project. You both have a common goal, but you can't seem to agree on anything, or it just makes it difficult to be around each other because of some suppressed feelings that you both have. Even though they both have a difference in a political view, they still care for each other. It's also great to see Obi-Wan not only shine in this arc, but also struggle to keep his feelings professional with Satine while they're still present. In a way, this relationship kind of parallels Anakin and Padme's relationship, where they both had feelings and they were really close with each other, but due to Obi-Wan's dedication to the Jedi Code for not forming attachments, he had to break things off with Satine, leaving her heartbroken. It almost makes you wonder what would have happened if Obi-Wan had just left the Jedi Order to be with Satine, or if he would have had a secret relationship with Satine, just like Anakin and Padme currently have at this time. Anakin's even taken back by this news, the fact that Obi-Wan was in love with Satine, but did not pursue a relationship with her, knowing very well the struggle that he's currently going through at this point. And this honestly wouldn't be the last time in the series that we'll explore this relationship between Obi-Wan and Satine. And this is also our first introduction to Pre Vizsla as well too, where, like I mentioned before, his main goal is to regain the Mandalorian warrior status to break away from neutrality and peace that Satine has been building up throughout the Clone Wars. Also, fun fact, Pre Vizsla is also voiced by Jon Favreau, the director of the first two Iron Man films and one of the co-creators of The Mandalorian. So, the overall importance of this arc to the Clone Wars, it's the beginning of many different ideas and events that happen throughout the rest of the Clone Wars and also the Star Wars universe. We get to explore more episodes throughout the show that explore not only Mandalore and how they're doing under their neutral ways, but we also get other episodes of Death Watch just to show their rise as well and their presence to try and become the main warrior race that they have been fighting for to take Mandalore back to its former glory. This is also where we get our introduction to the Darksaber for the first time, which symbolizes those who are willing to rule Mandalore and unite its people. And this is also the arc where, like I mentioned before, we tend to learn more about Obi-Wan's backstory and other areas that haven't been explored before. This is where we get to learn a little bit more about his past, and this is something that the prequels and even most episodes of Season 1 haven't really gotten into at this point, because there's a lot you can really do and explain within a 2-hour movie, but I feel like these episodes really do highlight Obi-Wan more as a character and just expand on his overall growth and where he is at this point in the Star Wars history. Not only we see his struggles of him wanting to be with someone and actually express love and feelings and attachment, but his overall moral and justification to the Jedi Code that's still in the way to just regain him and repurpose him down to surface so that way he can just stay grounded with where his true beliefs are at that moment. It's also really interesting his parallels with him and Satine, compared that to Anakin and Padme, where we see how their story will end up, and it's also kind of something to really think about too. What would have happened if Obi-Wan had actually gone down that same path as well? Or if Obi-Wan had actually known about Anakin and Padme prior to Anakin's downfall, maybe he could have said something to try and prevent some of his deception towards the dark side. It's really just a lot of big what-ifs and just variables that just kind of go through my mind whenever I rethink about this episode and these arcs, especially when Maul gets brought back into the show and we see that conflict come back up again. Again, more stuff I could talk about in a later time in a later episode, but this really does start a tremendous domino effect to lead to several different events throughout the Star Wars universe, but it'll have a long-lasting impact for several different storylines that have some severe dire consequences throughout many different storylines as well too. So these are some of my overall thoughts about the Mandalore arc of Season 2. It's still one of my favorite things to go back and rewatch from time to time, not only with this being our introduction to, one of our introductions to Mandalorian lore, but also it's really interesting to learn more about some characters that we've been following throughout this time, learning more about Obi-Wan's character, being introduced to Satine and Pre Vizsla, their struggles and their own beliefs as to what they want for the people in Mandalore. Both aren't really necessarily flawed, but at the same time, they just have an idea for what they want is best for their people, whether that be right or wrong in their own eyes and perspectives at this time of the conflict. It's one of my favorite arcs to go back and rewatch and to revisit because I just really enjoy this side of things and is really interesting to see where a lot of this will go towards the end of the series and where we end up at this point in time. So these are my overall thoughts, and let me know what you all think. Is this one of your favorite arcs of the series? Is there another arc in Season 2 that you prefer a little bit more? Comment down below and let me know. And hey, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Stick around for some more videos to come. I'm Night Owl, and thank you for watching.